All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your little break. We will reconvene the meeting with the item about Cambridge to Hamilton public transport study. Thank you, Andy. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair. So some of you may recall around this time, possibly a little later this last year, the committee endorsed progression of a report to look at bus infrastructure between Cambridge and Hamilton. So the context for this was that there'd previously been a business case undertaken for improvements to wide-power business service, bus services, and that would take the service levels between Cambridge and Hamilton to a base level of hourly all-day weekdays between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. And 2 hourly weekends between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. As part of that business case, we deliberately didn't look at bus infrastructure improvements. So I really see this as the partner study to the business case looking at bus service levels. So I think the headlines of the report are that there is significant scope for improvements along that Hamilton to Cambridge and vice versa alignments in terms of bus infrastructure. So potentially saving around 20 minutes of journey time in the peak hours in both directions, which is a very considerable improvement to the existing services, which are affected by long journey times compared to private car, but also variability in journey times, which make it difficult to timetable bus services efficiently and effectively. Worth saying that the Cambridge to Hamilton bus service, we are still running full timetables on, although we haven't stepped up to the new service levels yet. We are looking at tendering that service shortly, which would align with the introduction of the hourly service. Also, to make quite clear, we are looking at electric vehicles on that service. So there will probably be the first electric buses to venture into Hamilton. Some of the options that were considered. Well, first of all, we looked at a number of different alignments through Hamilton. So the route that the bus takes to get into Hamilton. And whilst it is possible to find a quicker route, say via Cobham Drive, it wouldn't provide access to a number of the destinations en route that the Cambridge to Hamilton bus service currently benefits from. So a reasonably short walking distance to the university, and also a lot of employment and facilities around the Grey Street area. So having looked at a number of different route options, we then looked at the bus infrastructure along the preferred route alignment, which happens to be the existing bus alignment, which travels via Clyde Street and Cambridge Road. And so one of the key findings, obviously, from this study was that Hamilton City are progressing their University Link business case, and the Cambridge bus service would significantly benefit from the introduction of those measures as set out in the University Link business case. So Martin, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here and ask you to just give us a little update on Cambridge to Hamilton. On Clyde Street University Link.
Yeah, through the chair, the business case actually really does nicely align with this study. So we see it as a supporting piece of information for the business case. The business case has gone through some changes because we're now considering a river crossing and connections to that river crossing in the business case as part of the overall link from the university to the central city. So there's some additional work to be done before we can finalise that business case, get it approved by the new council of HCC, and then off to Waka Kotahi for them to consider. We're trying to align everything up with the next NLTP period, so that's what I've got in mind.
Thank you. So worth saying that the most probably the most significant areas of delay for the Cambridge to Hamilton service, and when we talk about delay, we're talking about what's the difference between free flow traffic conditions compared to those in the peak. So the primary areas of delay for the Cambridge to Hamilton bus service are actually within Hamilton, and they are on a busy roading corridor, which is covered by an existing or a business case that's being progressed by HCC. So the other area of interest was Cambridge Road between the new southern interchange at Tamahiri, where State Highway 26 and State Highway 1 meet. That business case being progressed by Wakatahi is currently under review. However, the study suggests that making a potential second lane from the southern interchange to Riverlea Road, configured as a bus-only lane, would be something worth investigating. Other improvements which were suggested along the corridor are making sure all the bus stop and associated infrastructure along the corridor are really up to scratch. So the Cambridge Hamilton alignment is used by a number of other bus services. So Clyde Street section in particular, multiple bus services using that corridor, in particular the Meteor. A option that considered an alignment through the University of Waikato was considered, and that option was considered with a view that providing more direct access to the university would be beneficial, but really the study only indicates that the alignment is feasible. However, there is a cost, a substantial cost associated with that, and we do need to do some further work around what the benefits would be to the whole bus network. So the network of bus services out towards the university, but also Ruakura. But something that received strong support from the university and other project partners, and certainly warrants some further development and assessment. Feasibility of a park and ride facility coming into Hamilton was also considered. And the conclusion of the report was really that a park and ride facility doesn't currently make economic sense, in that few people would use it, and really indicates that certain policy measures, in particular the pricing and availability of car parking within Hamilton City, would need to be adjusted significantly in order for that measure to have an uptake worth considering. So I think in conclusion, proposals, as I said in the beginning, could reduce the total travel time between Cambridge and Hamilton during the peak hours by up to 20 minutes, but also notably improve customer experience. So more reliable journeys, better infrastructure, better stops, better crossing facilities, and the report sets out a number of recommendations to the committee. I just note that the recommendations towards the end of the report are slightly different to the ones in the box. That was due to an editing error on my part, but the ones at the end of the report are the suggested recommendations. So the recommendations to the committee are to support the progression of Hamilton City's University Link business case, which is critical to the performance of the Cambridge bus service. Support inclusion of second traffic lane from the State Highway 1 Southern Interchange to Riverley Road, to be configured as a bus-only or high-occupancy vehicle lane, which includes buses or another arrangement such as high-occupancy vehicles and flat-room freight. To support undertaking a more detailed study or business case for university through routing concept beyond the feasibility assessment, and consider a potential delivery and funding model. And to support undertaking business cases for infrastructure on the corridor which are not part of existing business cases, including the potential university through routing connection and proposals for Cambridge Road corridor. So thank you. I'd like to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andy. So we've just changed the resolution, which is up on screen. What I'd like to get it do is, do we have a mover and a seconder for that? And then we can open it up to questions and discussion. Thank you, Liz. Happy to move for you to move. Thank you. Rodney, you want to second it? Thank you. All right. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I just have, thanks Andy and Martin. I've just got a couple of questions for clarity to start with, and that was E talks about proposals for Cambridge Road corridor, but that business case work's already happening. The business case is under review by Waka Kotahi, is that right? I was just a bit confused in terms of what E means, that Cambridge Road corridor. Oh, it's Cambridge Road corridor. Gotcha. Hold on. Don't worry, I've answered my own question. Second question is, what's the timing for that? What is the timing for the State Highway one, the Riverley Road section? What's the timing for that business case to come to us to see?
Yeah, look, my understanding is that business case is currently under review by Waka Kotahi, and the recommendation is that if that section did come forward, then one of the lanes be made a bus-only link. But I do not have any timings or update on timings, I'm afraid.
Okay. But when it says the inclusion of the second traffic lane, are you talking about including that in any particular business case, or is it just we endorse the concept of the second being a high frequency? And
yeah, so I guess the recommendation is around including that as part of the business case for the Cambridge Road section, State Highway 1.
And it talks about subject to resourcing the business. Hold on. So you've got the University Link business case.
Yep.
And then you've got the Riverlea Road business case, and then you're looking at potentially two separate business cases, one for Cambridge Road and one for the through route through the university.
Yes, so not necessarily business cases, but certainly small feasibility study work.
Okay. And it talks about it being subject to resourcing. So what resourcing is available, and does this mean coming back to Hamilton City Council around funding a further feasibility or business case? What does subject to resourcing mean for us? And timing?
Yeah, so that's a fair enough comment. I think, Martin, would you like to comment on the Cambridge?
I suppose, it's a very good question. It's a difficult one to answer because obviously our priority at the moment is for the University Link business case to get that over the line. That's the top priority for us. Anything else that sort of comes in at the moment is going to be certainly a resourcing issue for HCC, from my team. Yes, I mean, we sort of plan, develop and deliver the infrastructure. So that sort of stuff that's coming out of this report would obviously lie with us on the local road network and with Wakatai on the state highway network. So there'd need to be some consideration about how we took these things forward if there was a resolution passed today that was supported by our own committees back at HCC.
Yeah. Okay, so this will come back to the infrastructure ops, or its equivalent.
Yes, I would suggest it does. Yeah, to the new infrastructure ops committee, whatever form that takes.
If I might add, Madam Chair, I guess we're all in a similar situation with these kinds of things and wanting to progress them. But just to give you some confidence, we do have, we are with partners intending to develop a forward plan for, that will hopefully cover 3 years in detail, 5 years in less detail, but that would include, the investigations all the way through to implementation, and that will have to be subject to some level of prioritisation. But what we are keen to get from this committee is the support in principle to make sure that those actions are in those forward plans, so that when we come to the prioritisation exercise, everyone's got good visibility of them, and we're clear where to put them. I guess the next opportunity for that, and I know most councils will be working to similar timeframes, will be for us over the remainder of this calendar year to make sure that we're able to present any adjustments to annual plan for 2023-24 that may include prioritisation of resources if there's not space in the system between now and then.
Okay, thank you. And some kind of, I guess, update from you, Jess, just around that business case, really helpful.
Look, so at the moment, I guess a couple of things from me, and I think Mark touched on it. My view is that, I have some nervousness about the little bits coming in, that we need that holistic picture of all of the prioritisation, and it goes a lot to the resourcing that you asked about. At the moment, there's so much, but it also goes to funding prioritisation, because as I presented to you guys a few weeks ago, that's really constrained. So this one here, we are looking at that. I don't have the time frames at the moment very handy. I should have had them exactly where that is. Looking at page, but we have the kind of fresh, and we are going to look at bus prioritization about about it, but I would, I guess reiterate, it's not top of those urban pieces are the higher priority.
Excellent, thank you. Now, apologies if I'm not going to get the order right. Dennis, were you first or Liz?
Dennis.
Okay. Liz, do you want to just put yours on and off? Yeah, and pop it on. Just turn it on. Oh, yeah, you got it on? Have a green flashing light once you pop it on. Perfect. Thank you. Dennis.
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned that some of these vehicles at least would be electric. Can you just expand on that? How many, what size they might be? Charging infrastructure, that's
we're currently working with Waipā District Council to look at depot sites, which would include charging infrastructure. I can't recall exactly how many buses required to operate the timetable in the business case, but I believe it's seven or 8, and these would be large regional buses.
right. And a sort of time frame when this might be underway?
Yeah, look, Mark, would you be able to?
Yeah, subject to finalising a few details with Waipā, we're hoping to be able to go out for that tender before the close of the calendar year. We normally work at about a 12-month implementation timeframe from there.
Thanks, Dennis. Liz.
Thank you. Hey, look, overall really excellent report, actually. I'm really pleased to see this, of course, and appreciate the focus is on the infrastructure improvements. What we know for Cambridge is that we've got a huge explosion of houses about to happen in Cambridge North. So as I was saying to Mark in the break, setting behavioural patterns early on is what's crucial. So we're planning, of course, and we should all be planning for what Cambridge is experiencing, and that's, hundreds and hundreds of houses in the Cambridge North quite soon, actually. Consenting's already well organised. So great to see that there's going to be a shortened, I guess, time. 20 minutes is a lot. What I do know for those professional commuters from Cambridge to Hamilton daily, that's one of the big things that they're looking for, shortened period of time. I probably question at the moment the university link, and I think I'd really like to see a little bit more work done on that. And talking with those daily commuters, because there is good access and there are stops on Knighton Road, there's a real question mark around that. So I just kind of feel like we need a little bit more work to be done. And there's a general feeling that this is probably helping Hamilton City to the university more than it is helping Cambridge to Hamilton. So I'm really we're just querying the motivation probably and around how that will help keep, those commuter experiences positive and the most shortened period of time as well. Those daily commuters are really valuable, and I'm wondering how we might be able to get their input going forward. There's 2 or 3 on that bus every day, and they're professional workers in the Hamilton City, and their advice is really crucial here. And I'm not too sure I'm just suggesting that we might tap into them more. And I've got 2 or 3 names, and I'm just not suggesting a committee or anything like that, because I know how we love to resource committees, but it's about just catching up very informally and getting some good advice. And I've been in touch with them over the weekend, and they're more than happy just to sit down for half an hour and tell you what their personal experiences are. They've got some question marks around some of the information in the report. Some of it just doesn't quite match up with their actual experiences as well. So I think their advice could be quite valuable.
I could respond to that through the chair. Look, I'd be grateful if you could pass some names on. I've got one of those commuters actually sits next to me in my office, so I get it firsthand. So he's obviously only one person, but if there's others that are happy to share their thoughts, then we'll certainly take those comments on board going forward, because it's always useful to have that first-hand user experience with these things.
Thank you. I'll organise it.
there anything else, Liz? Or Park and ride?
Look again. The park and ride's a really interesting one. I think, yeah. I mean, I take the report that I take the report that essentially it's not the right time for that. That's what it's suggesting at this point. Yeah, perhaps we need further discussions on this actually.
Excellent, thanks, Liz. I just had a few questions. Yeah, just to pick up on a few of Liz's points and a few of my own. Just around the park and ride, I just wonder where it was suggested, which was out by the Avanti drone. Just in hearing Liz's comments around Cambridge North and Hautapu type area, I just wonder if more investigation could go into a possible park and ride, and just wanting to understand, would Waipa then own that infrastructure, since it's in your district? And then also through the PTP, we had submissions from Tamahiri about a park and ride there, which is in Waikato district jurisdiction. So yeah, just wondering, we know land will never be cheaper than it is now. Yeah, just wondering if, I often hear from our more rural people, that they want park and rides, they don't want to drive into the city. And we did talk about in the report about the sticks, parking policies, other things were alluded to, which I'm assuming would be congestion charges, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, just wondering whether park and rides is something that we do need to at least look into at some point, yeah, to get that behaviour change sooner rather than later. Yeah, just a question on the Cambridge route and where it would intersect with the new Meteor route. Just picking up on Liz's points about access to the uni. If people did need to make only one transfer and it was, to a fast and frequent route going out to the uni, is that better use of those commuters' time? So just a question there, and then I've got a couple more.
Two questions there, I think. Park and ride, I think, is an issue that's going to continue to be contentious. There's a lot of people that have got strong views one way or the other on park and ride. I don't think that this study is going to provide the long-term strategy for that kind of question. Park and ride is an issue that will be considered as part of the Metro Spatial Plan work in a broader context, and that's on all corridors coming into Hamilton, not just Cambridge. I think the focus of this report is very much on what are the short-term, relatively quick win implementations, and within short term, I'm talking about within the next 5 to 10 years, which might not be short term by your book, but so I think, I think we just probably need to sort of temper our expectations around what the near-term kind of goals of this piece of work are, and without wanting to pass the buck on to the Metro Spatial Plan at all, I think it is a bigger question than can be answered through this piece of work. And then I think your second question was around the university link option. So what I would say about that was that it's not identified as the preferred short-term route in the report. What it says is that we need to do some more work on the feasibility of that link. And I think so the university through route concept has potentially much broader benefits than the Cambridge service. And if we do look at it in the context of the broader bus network out through to the university, past the university even, into Ruakura. I think that's something that's worth considering in more detail. And as part of that work, we can look at whether it's justifiable to divert a particular bus service, but it is a sizable price tag to put a link through the university. It requires a complete pavement rebuild. So there is a lot of work to do. There is a lot of work to do to justify that amount of money being spent on a infrastructure project. So without a real detailed study looking at what benefits can be realised from that link and to what routes, because it might be that actually the best option for the Cambridge service is not to go via the university. It might be that the best option is to transfer onto another frequent bus route out to the university, or some other solution. So look, I don't want the takeaway from this report to be we think that the long-term aspiration should be that we should put the Cambridge service through the university. What I want to say is that it's something that we should think about in the context of all the other things that are going on in that area.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's brilliant that 20 minutes is a significant time saving. Yeah, and yeah, I'll leave it there. Liz.
Sorry, just one more thing. I'm just wondering then if that particular business case, if it's in the appropriate, if it's under the appropriate heading under Cambridge to Hamilton Public Transport. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if it's not really that advantageous for Cambridge to Hamilton commuters, is it sitting in the right place, that particular business?
Like I say, I think it's something that needs to be that needs more work doing on it. We included it as part of this study because we thought it would be an opportune vehicle to look at how to improve access for Cambridge to the university, which is a big trip attractor. But yeah, I mean, I share your question over whether that is the right heading for a university link to be considered. I guess the counter question is there a better vehicle for it to be considered under, given that this is a service that is going to benefit from a connection to the university.
Thank you. Are there any further? Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, and also in relation to members' question there, I think it might be appropriate if we note exactly that matter, particularly because I think we share that view that the benefits of university through routing may accrue to Cambridge and the connection there, but may not. And so the idea of that, and I think that's the intention of the recommendation here, and why it's separated out as a particular item rather than into the other, rather than into D, is that it is effectively a separate piece of work. And I note the members' nervousness that that's not sufficiently reflected. And given that we have, we'll have a few months before this committee is able to reconvene around this matter, I think it's really useful if that's made really clear. It may be, if I can if I can suggest that we may note that that noting the benefits of university through routing may accrue to connections other than Cambridge to Hamilton. That might just help us remember the discussion that we had when we come back to this resolution in the future.
Excellent, thank you. And possibly just on that as well, just to Liz's points about the flex within within Cambridge, sorry, how that might change things at Cambridge end as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so for Cambridge, I guess we were looking for an internal public transport system just within the boundaries of the Cambridge town. So yeah, I'm sure that potentially could have a impact on this particular service as well. I guess just with this particular item, I'm just really wanting to see, you know, I'm sure A through to E are not in order, but I just don't like seeing A at the top. So, you know, in terms of the best priorities, or when we look at certainly that interchange at Tamahiri, that just looks like there's some real great wins and benefits there that might be able to be incorporated quite quickly, maybe. But I guess, like I said, there's no priority, but I just kind of want to make sure that we stay really focused on the fact that that their overall goal here is to get commuters from Cambridge to Hamilton quickly and not get too diverted.
So Liz, just looking at the screen, we've got A to D. Do you feel that those resolutions accurately reflect what you're talking about?
Well, some of them, not all of them.
Are you proposing that we?
I think what I'm happy with them to stay at the moment. I'm just concerned around that word fully endorse, because we're not fully endorsing all of those items. So happy to, you know, continue discussions, continue working towards investigating all of these options, but I just don't want it to look like that we're fully endorsing that option or any of those options until we've done more investigative work, which I think is what I'd heard anyway.
Can you just point out where it says?
The word, just that the recommended way forward is endorsed, not endorsed, but is endorsed.
Supported or? Yeah, to my understanding, endorsing business cases and studies. Is that how you're reading it, Liz?
Yes. It's okay. It's okay. I just don't want it to look like we are supporting the full endorsement or idea of it at this point. It's all under investigations. That's right. Yeah. Just so that we're really clear in the minutes around that.
Okay. Do I have any other thoughts around the room or? Okay, so the resolution's up on the screen.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm comfortable with it as it is.
So you're the mover. Are you happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rodney, are you happy how it sounds? Okay. Is there any further discussion or debate on this?
Just very briefly, very keen to see this work progress. So look forward. Well, assuming I'm still here, I look forward to seeing some more detail around how we prioritise these different actions so we get the most important ones underway first. And I think if there is need for resourcing or discussions around what we prioritise, then it goes back to the infrastructure, HCC or something similar. But yeah, it's 20 minutes. Reducing a journey by 20 minutes is significant. That's double the savings of Transmission Gully, which is extremely expensive project. So I think this is this is a really, given how many people commute from the Cambridge area in and out of Hamilton every day, this is a really significant project. So just keep a close sight on progress and whether at a governance level we need to make decisions around resourcing.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Yeah, I'd also echo those points, especially, you know, those infrastructure improvements benefit other fast and frequent routes within Hamilton as well. So if we can get savings for the Cambridge bus, then it would have co-benefits for other buses as well. So yeah, it's exciting to see this sort of study progress. So yeah, thank you. Right, let's look to move the resolution. So it's on the screen. We've had lots of discussion about it. So all those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, 2 more items on the agenda. Annual plan updates. Mark, got Eva Lisa as well? Or?
She is online. Thank you, Madam Chair. This report is really intended to provide a brief update of the changes that were made to annual plans across regional councils and city council annual plans as they relate to public transport. I will speak to those changes related to the Waikato Regional Councils very briefly, otherwise we'll take the papers as read. And then I think Eva Lisa has joined us online and she can do the same in respect to the City Council changes. I guess first of all, the 2 main changes made through the Waikato Regional Council's annual plan were in relation to the establishment of the Community Transport Fund. The committee may remember from actually approaches made to the long-term plan, the discussion started about how might the community transport sector have access to a more sustainable level of funding to enable them to provide the great services that they do, highly tailored to particular user groups, while maintaining their independence. They recommended the establishment of a fund. The council that wasn't deemed a significant decision. It wasn't consultation wasn't required on that particular matter, given how it was then proposed by staff to be established, and that fund has now been established. We were hoping to be able to bring to this committee some outputs from that work, but the Community Transport Symposium, which is meeting thank you, Chair, on the 27th, that'll be a key matter for them to discuss the framework for that funding, so that it best suits the needs of that sector. The other change that was agreed by Council followed consultation. This was a significant change, and this was a change in the rating policies that were recommended, or the funding policies that was recommended by from this committee, and that was to consider rating directly for public transport services in an area outside of Hamilton City. It was resolved by the council following submissions and hearings to include Hauraki District, Matamata Piako and Thames Coromandel districts within the regional council's funding policy for public transport services. So now, much like within Hamilton City, the regional council rates directly for public transport services in those districts. Through that process, there was a discussion about the extent to which new services, which were included as part of the consultation process, would be included and funded from this financial year forward. Because I guess due to a lack of the ability to confirm Waka Kotahi funding share for those additional services, the feedback was that the preference was to include existing services only, subject to further funding, subject to future funding availability. The policy framework that was adopted for that rating policy is reasonably similar to the approach that's adopted within the City Council, within the Hamilton City area. There are some slight differences which I won't go into, but in effect, the key thing is the Regional Council is now rating directly for public transport services in Hauraki, Parramatta, Piako and Thames Corridor, i.e. a similar footing to the City Council, the city area. Those are the main changes to Regional Council Annual Plan 2022-23. Now, I see the list is online. I'm not sure, Martin, I think maybe, is it you speaking to this?
Yep, I can speak. Yep. Just quickly, Hamilton City Council has released some local share funding so we can progress some public transport infrastructure to get ahead of the game. We've been working very closely with Wakakatahi and Waikato Regional Council colleagues on the pieces of infrastructure that we're progressing at the moment. Those pieces of infrastructure have been endorsed by Infrastructure Operations Committee. So we're busy developing and designing those at the moment. Eastern Pathways School Link and Connections project has pre-implementation funding approved by Wakatahi, and so there's a number of elements within that program of work that supports better public transport efficiency and infrastructure. So the professional services for that project is been awarded and tendered and awarded, and so designs, core concept designs are underway at the moment. There'll be quite a bit of community engagement as we go through that process as well. We have a standard low cost, low risk program of works that's subsidised. That's out to consultation on a number of pieces of that at the moment with the community. That's all around new bus shelters, bus stops and accessible infrastructure for people with mobility issues. And then excitingly, we have a funding for school travel planning, which is great. So some local share funding has been approved by council for that. And we're currently working with two clusters of schools to get them on board. We have also gone out to market for 2 school travel coordinators, and we're hoping to appoint those within the next week or 2. So we've made some progress in that space as well. I think I've covered it all.
Thanks, Martin. Right, we'll start it off with Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to ask Mark, what was the, or yourself actually, what was the reason for the Waikato Regional Council not agreeing to regionalise total mobility funding per our recommendation?
Through the chair, I think one of the this happened at the same time as the Regional Council was considering the recommendations for the Public Transport Business Improvement Review, which was really a question about the extent to which and the approach that might be taken to rating for public transport under a regional model, region-wide. And I think that there was I think there was an understanding and remains an appetite to regionalise funding for total mobility services, but that the preference was to do that as part of a region-wide approach to rating for public transport services as a whole, rather than as a separate activity.
And can you remind me, Mark, sorry, when did we flag that we would go to a fully regionalised approach for rating?
Yeah, through the chair. So the Business Improvement Review's recommendations are to work collaboratively with willing territorial authorities on the funding policy and implementation. The timeframe for that would be from long-term plan 2024.
Is it, how difficult would it be to regionalise just total mobility in the next annual plan? Like,
Yep, through the chair, it would absolutely remain open to the regional council to choose to do that. The work and lead up to our annual plan effectively set out the framework for doing that. The key decision would come back to the same type of decision that was made around community transport as to whether or not it was done through regional rate or targeted rate. Done through targeted rate or a special transport related rate, then it would be a new rate subject to consultation on annual, further consultation or public consultation process. But all of those things remain within the realm of possibility for annual plan 23-24. The council wants to do it ahead of long-term plan.
Chair Angela, with your leave, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that this matter is reconsidered in the next upcoming annual plan by the regional council, taking into account it will be council. Like, that's not an issue.
It is within scope. You can do
Okay.
motion, but the council's not a decision. They don't get consider it, but they're not like if you resolve that they had to do something, they're not.
But it's recommended that they consider it and leave it to the process.
It's on their trade.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Sue?
that's all.
Yeah, you will note in the report that there is an appetite for that. So yeah, all things willing next triennium. But yeah, happy to have it as a formal recognition.
So, the incoming council.
I'm happy to second that one.
Throughout the region.
All right, Councillor Tegg. Yep, we
We've
can.
got it on the floor.
Yeah, we have a mover and a seconder, so happy to discuss that one and put your mic on, Dennis.
Yeah, I support that. I don't have any further comment.
Okay, is there any further comment on the recommendation on the floor, on the table?
Of the chair in Angela's absence. Obviously, that report to the incoming council, the incoming committee will micro detail the rest of New Zealand where there are, because obviously most regions in New Zealand, that's the key word, most regions. So obviously what I'm sure the incoming council will be reminded is where it is not happening, is happening for obvious reasons. In terms of the reforms around all of these access issues, I would say, with respect, this is quite a critical issue for the region, but that's just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, as there are no further questions, comments, debate, let's put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right. Councillor Tegg.
Thanks. Just a comment really around the issue that now those three eastern district councils we have the capacity to rate directly for public transport. what I'm thinking is that that could well be a template for rollout in the rest of the region. And if we consider there's now been 2 episodes of public consultation, which has shown great support for that concept. The first was in the annual plan and the second was in the public transport plan we've just considered. I think it was in the region of somewhere in 70 to 80% support for that. Where there was less support was, okay, we're okay with having that service, but provided we get the 50-odd% subsidy from Kotahi. And I suppose where I'm heading with this is we now have clear evidence of very strong public support for it. And as a next step, I'd like to see us advance that and approach Waka Kotahi and say, okay, we've proven that there is support. Reconsider your funding for that issue. So, you know, that's just a sort of a general sense of direction I'd like to see us head.
Thank you, Councillor Teague. I thought you were going to suggest that through the annual plan we look at rating the whole region. Sorry, what was that? Okay. Mark's having kittens. Was there anything further online, Dave? Okay. Fantastic. Right, I'm happy to move that one. That we receive the report. Who would like to second it? Thanks, Councillor T. Right, all those in favour? Unless there's anyone else wants to add anything. Cool, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, our final report. 2021-22 in review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is really just a bit of a wrap up of the last 12 months. It's pretty short report, but I'm not going to step through it because there is no new information in the report. It's really just a bit of a summary of where we've come to and from over the past in the last financial year. So I'm happy to take the report as read and invite any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Do we have any questions, comments? Andy. Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Happily move.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? I'm happy to second. Okay. Just in regards to your flex buses and people parking in the bus stops at night time especially, I was just wondering, Martin or Andy, maybe Martin, is there parking enforcement around during the evenings, early mornings? And just wondering what the process might be to free up those bus stops for our flex buses, given accessibility concerns, getting close enough to the curb for people, you know, to get on and off safely.
Yeah, look, through the chair, it's definitely an ongoing issue that Andy's made me aware of on a few occasions, and enforcement is a major problem when this is happening. I think particularly in the central city area, we've had some issues around this with in this sort of evenings or later evenings. So look, I can take this away and continue discussions within HCC about how we might deal with it, but without enforcement there or enforcement via technology, then it's a difficult one to solve. But the technology is improving. We've got, you know, number plate recognition vehicles now. We have CCTV available, so there may be ways that we can improve this situation.
Okay, could you just expand on that technology option? Are you saying that you might better take photos of people parking in bus stops and issue tickets, or?
Well, yeah, you have to see the offence being committed. So a warranted officer needs to be seeing an offence being committed to issue a ticket. Now, there's a number of ways that can be done, either physically being there on site, either by a number plate recognition vehicle driving by, or potentially via CCTV. That can be done as well. So that there is a number of ways where the technology can help us support these situations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Just on that very quickly, Martin, can we use the image license plate recognition vehicles? Because now they allow us to do enforcement at night. They solve some of those safety issues. And if we did that, we could put, people have an assumption from years of, I guess, experience that we don't enforce any parking stuff after 5 or 6 p.m. So they park in loading zones and bus bays, all sorts of stuff in the evening. So maybe if we put out some temporary signage on poles at these places, could we do those two things together and say we are now enforcing after 6 p.m. do not park here, because it's just a culture thing. We assume that nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and through the chair, I'll take away the comments and talk with our parking manager and see what we can do to help resolve that situation. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Martin, just one thing further. Say if somebody had their antenna app or whatever, something out, and they took a photo of someone parked there and put it through. Does anything actually happen with those reports? Or is you just wasting your own time? But what you said about someone observing an offence, is that, would you consider that to be an observed offence?
Look, I'm not an expert in this area, but when people do report something through Antenno, then it goes through our internal processes and it ends up on somebody's desk to deal with. But my understanding of the situation is that if somebody, a member of the public, takes a photo of an offence, they can send that to council, but they have to be prepared to take it all the way through to potentially court to be a witness to the fact that that offence has actually taken place. So I think a lot of people aren't prepared to necessarily do that, but I'll take all these comments and talk to our parking manager. He's the expert in this area. Unfortunately, I'm not.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I won't harass you anymore. Excellent. Right. No one else I don't see any other lights on or any notes in the chat. So we have a mover and a seconder. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, just before we adjourn the meeting, I understand, Andy, it's your last time with us. Yeah, congratulations on your new role. We thank you for your your expertise and your passion for what you do, and we're very sad to see you go. But we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Very cool. Excellent. And I just wanted to say to the committee members around the table and those online that we've had a good 3 years, made some really good ground, and thank you for your passion, your interest in this area, and I really like the way that it's expanded from being very it's expanded outside of Hamilton is what I'll say, the passion around the region as well for your own localised areas is really appreciated, and especially within Hamilton as well. We need everything, so thank you to those members, and lastly to the staff, thank you democracy team, and then the transport team, both at my own council and all the councils around the Waikato. Yeah, we couldn't do this without you, so thank you very much. And with that, I will close.
Sorry, I just wanted
Councillor
to
Thompson.
also thank staff team for the excellent work that you do, and really, and also yourself, Chair Angela. I really enjoyed working on this committee. I feel like it's been a very responsive and action-orientated committee, and despite some of the challenges we've had, you know, we have made some good inroads and set some good foundations for some really good change next few years. So thank you everyone, really, because it's I think it's been a really constructive.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone. I believe lunch is here, so you're welcome to stay and catch up one last time. Thank you everyone. Meeting's closed.